This video addresses the processes of grading in health and physical education. Specifically, the video will address the topics of standards-based grading and criterion reference grading. Other topics in this video include steps in determining grades, grading in society, an educator's definition of grades, and current issues in physical education grading. Now, grades are a prevalent part of the world in which we live. We see evidence of grading in services we receive in higher education institutions, healthcare, food services, and the products that we use. There are systematic methods for grading infrastructure such as bridges, roads, and waterways. The entertainment industry and the internet are evaluated using grading by testing services and consumers themselves. Even the North Carolina Public Schools issue performance report cards for school districts and schools. Although some type of grading is saturated into virtually every facet of our society, many physical educators find reasons not to grade their students. The following are some of these reasons. First, physical education is a non-academic subject and therefore grading is unnecessary and inappropriate. The rebuttal to this argument is that grading is a means to communicate information about student performances to parents, teachers, administrators, as well as students. Here's another argument. Assessment procedures are time-consuming, which creates time management issues for teachers that are already having large classes and limited class time. The answer to the claim is that assessments can be used as learning experiences. Also, there are plenty of technologies that reduce the amount of time required for collecting, recording, and managing student learning data. Still another argument. Some educators claim that physical educators are unreliable in their assessment of students or that practices are different among teachers in the profession. The counter-argument is that teachers should first be concerned about their own program and their own students. Secondly, the selection or creation of valid and reliable assessments is a professional responsibility. The use of criterion referenced assessments and criterion referenced assignment of grades reduces issues of unreliability. Now, some teachers argue that the assignment of performance-based grades in physical education is discouraging to students and may curb their engagement in physical activity. My first response is that grades are assigned in other school subjects with the expectation that all students can be successful. Physical educators should provide a variety of learning experiences in which all students, regardless of their abilities, can experience some level of success. When students are unsuccessful, the teacher, in most cases, has failed to meet the needs of those students. The bottom line is that grading is an essential function of the teaching learning process and should not be minimized, compromised, or ignored. So the next question, what exactly is grading and what is its function? Well, first, grades are like assessment scores in that they both reflect a student's performance on selected behaviors and both should be valid and reliable indicators of student performances. The difference between grades and assessment scores are that grades are a final summation of a student's progress. Now to the question, what is the definition of a grade? First, grading is a symbol that denotes a summation of a student's progress as determined from systematic assessment practices. At the primary level, grades are a qualitative description using a written narrative to describe a student's progress. The letter grades on report cards beginning in the 3rd or the 4th grade exemplify the classic definition of a grade. Reported grades become a part of a student's permanent record. The next logical question is, what is the process for determining grades? To answer this question, we look at 4 steps. First, the teacher must determine the goals for the unit being graded. If you recall, these grades should be based upon both the program goals and the North Carolina Essential Standards or the Shape America National Standards and grade level outcomes. Second, based upon these unit goals, the teacher must either choose or construct valid and reliable instruments. Then, the teacher must compare the assessment results to the criterion found in the learning objectives. And then finally, the teacher assigns grades based upon identified criteria. All program development steps behind a student's final grade should be traced back to the program philosophy and mission statement. As you know, the program mission is based upon the state and national standards as well as the needs and interests of students. Ultimately, program goals, unit goals, lesson objectives, lesson content, and assessment content are derived from the mission and the philosophy statement. The screen illustration shows a systematic linkage between the grade and the state or national standards. When assessments are used for the determination of grades and or align to these program elements, then one can claim that grading is standards-based. When all is said and done, the teacher should be confident that the grades reflect student performances with aligned instructional experiences delivered by the program. Criterion reference is based upon 2 steps. The collection of data and scores from criterion referenced assessments is the first step, and the second step is the conversion of scores to a letter grade based upon a grading criterion. This is much like the assignment of grades in HPE 3230, where the categorization of final grades is based upon a set of criterion. For example, there is a criterion for what constitutes an A, or a B, or a C. And you can see an example of this criterion on the screen. The advantage of criterion reference grading is that students are compared to a predetermined criterion and not to other students. Hence, criterion reference grades are not influenced by the performance of other students. The foundation for criterion reference grading is the use of criterion reference assessments to collect data on performances. Judgments about those performances are based upon a predetermined criterion established by the teacher. When scores used for grading are generated using assessments that are criterion referenced, then one can legitimately make the claim that grades are criterion referenced. Now that we've examined the idea of criterion reference grading, let's turn our attention to the composition of physical education grades. Unlike mathematics or other academic subjects where only the cognitive domain constitutes a grade, physical education grades should be made up of all 4 learning domains. Consequently, a final physical education grade is a combination of student performances from all 4 learning domains. At the beginning of the semester, you responded to a grading and physical education survey. This survey addressed how grades you received in high school were determined. One of your survey questions, which addressed the learning domains, was, which of the following behaviors were used to determine your grade? The screen illustration shows the responses to this question. The numbers in the green horizontal bars are percentages of your responses. For example, 93% of you indicated that your grade included dressing out, while only 43% reported that quizzes and tests were used in determining your grades. The data chart of the behaviors used to determine your grade show the predominant source of your grades were demonstrations of personal and social responsibility. Dressing out, attendance, participation, and effort and attitude are demonstrations of personal and social responsibility. Therefore, these behaviors are all from the affective domain. Now, one note here, at first glance, you might consider participation to be a psychomotor or health-related fitness behavior. However, participation refers to the student's choice to either engage or not engage in class activities and is not a demonstration of specific psychomotor or health-related fitness activity. Consequently, student choices are in the affective domain. The fifth most frequent grading behavior reported was performances on quizzes and tests. Skills tests, demonstration of gameplay or game strategies, and fitness test results received the least consideration in the determination of your grades. Now let me digress here for a moment. It's okay to include evidence of physical activity in grades, but remember that fitness test results should never, ever be used for grading purposes. To summarize, your data showed that teachers graded disproportionately from the affective and the cognitive domains, while the psychomotor and the health-related fitness domains contributed little to the makeup of your grades. These student responsibilities are by no means trivial, but they are largely unrelated to progress toward educational objectives derived from state and national content standards. From another perspective, performance in a science class is based upon academic achievement and not the student's punctuality, their attire, their physical appearance, or their attitudes about science. And so what I ask of you is that you make the commitment not to engage in practices where grades are based primarily on personal and social responsibility. Now, all four learning domains should proportionally comprise a physical education grade. Proportional representation means that grades should be weighted more heavily on domains which focus on the acquisition of skills, gameplay competency, and fitness. Although physical educators must take into account the program philosophy and the student needs when determining the proportion of learning domains and grades, the emphasis in any program should be on the psychomotor and the health-related fitness learning domains. The logic used in giving the psychomotor domain the greatest emphasis is that movement is a principal behavior in physical education. The psychomotor domain has a greater consideration over health-related fitness domain since acquiring game and activity skills are foundational to fitness activities. Although very important, the affective and the cognitive domains should be weighted less. As a part of this video summary, I'll refer you back to the uses of measurement and evaluation. At the beginning of the semester, you examined the different uses of measurement and evaluation. Grading was addressed as a component of the program evaluation function. Consequently, we can safely state that measurement and evaluation is a foundation of all grading processes. Otherwise, without the use of systematic assessments that are valid and reliable, grades are nothing more than guesswork about a student's progress. Specific to grading in physical education, we examine the definition of grades, arguments for and against grading, standards-based grading, and criterion reference grading. Finally, the proportional representation of learning domains in grades were discussed.